Hello, hello. Welcome back. My name is Young Penitent, and you are my corner. What you just saw was a little scene from the farm, which Helios Farm. My live stream from 5 days ago was at that farm in their farmhouse, but you guys never really got to see any of the scenery. I didn't show any of the scenery of the farm, so there you get to see a little bit of Helios Farms. You see the cows and the hills in the back, hills in the background and everything. So yeah, I just wanted to show that little scene. I wanted to also apologize for the audio on that my last stream. I know it wasn't that great because well, I'll explain why. I'll give you guys a little lesson. We actually had microphones on the little lapel microphones set up for that last interview, but they didn't work, and I'll tell you why. So I use an iPhone, and apparently for an iPhone, if you want a microphone to work that you plug into an iPhone, it needs to be a TRRS type jack. So here, I'm showing you a jack here. And this is a TRS. You see there's two little black lines there. Now, if you want to, this is called a TRS with the two black lines, and the TRRS has three black lines. So that was my mistake, a rookie error. So I'm sorry about the audio. You can kind of still hear it. You can still hear the interview okay, but it's not great. I know you're going to have to be a hardcore Young Penitent fan if you're going to sit through an interview like that. So, tip to all you YouTubers out there, if you want to have a microphone jacked into your iPhone, get the TRRS cord. So sorry to Theo for that. Sorry to everybody who had to listen, but I think it was still a great interview, I think. So we're still learning here. This is still a young channel. So now that I have that out of the way, got a few things, a little bit of housekeeping before we get to our main talk. The main what we're talking about today are angels and demons, and we're going to address the question whether demons are the cause of mental illness. So but I wanted to say before I jump into that, I just 10 days ago we just celebrated 250 subscribers on this channel, and I celebrated that number because I had doubled my subscribers from when I started streaming originally. I started with about 125. Those were subscribers left over from the music videos that I had from a while back. Well, I just looked right before I started this stream. I now have over 400 subscribers. So I just went from 250 to 400 in a matter of 10 days since that stream when we celebrated. And that is actually I don't know how that happened. It took me like 5 months to get that first 125 new subscribers. I was scratching and crawling, and it was a grind. Every stream I got maybe one or two more subscribers, every stream. And then all of a sudden I drop a stream and I get 150 in one shot. It's a little disconcerting. I don't know how that happened. Maybe the YouTube algorithm is pushing it out to people. Maybe someone shared it. I don't know. Maybe people are talking about it. But I have to say, this community that we have, the Orthodox community that we have online and on YouTube and online in general, I think we have the best community. And I think I'm sort of plugging into that community there. We have guys were leaving comments, excellent comments. People are engaging. let me know if someone's watching. Let me know that everything sounds good. Someone say something in the chat for me so I know that you're there. But I think we probably have the best community out there in general. And, that makes sense since Orthodox Christians are the best people, simply the best people that there are. And, so that makes sense to me. I understand that. So I think we might reach my next milestone, which is going to be 500 sooner than expected. So yeah, that is my introduction for today's video. And let me get into the stream here. Let me get going with this. So I was thinking to myself, what should I do? What should my next stream be? And I went and I looked at the church calendar. And I looked, and today's Monday, the 21st. And I said to myself, let's look and see who's being celebrated. What's this? Who are we commemorating today on the church calendar? And it turns out that today is the commemoration of the Holy Archangel Michael and all of the Bodiless Powers. Okay, I got a thumbs up. So from Sega CD, which means that everything's going good. People can hear me. All right, good. So today it is the Archangel Michael and all of the bodiless powers of heaven. So these are the angels. These are beings, immaterial beings that were created prior to the creation of the world. These were the first created beings. Before God formed the animals and the earth and man, he created these. And we don't know the exact number, but they are countless numbers of angels. And the way I think about it, when I look up into the heavens, like you go from Helios Farms, for example, where there's no ambient light, you can really see the stars, and you see all of those stars up in heaven. I think that's about how many angels there are. It's just countless. It's millions, it's billions. And so God created these angels, and we have a little bit of knowledge. I'm gonna go over this a little bit. We have a little bit of knowledge about the different orders of angels, and I want to review this pretty quick. Run over this before we get to the main thesis of my stream. So we have a lot of what we know about the angels is taken from a book called The Celestial Hierarchies. And this book is attributed to Saint Dionysius the Areopagite. Saint Dionysius is mentioned in the book of Acts. When Saint Paul goes to Mars Hill in Athens and he gives a speech, and he actually turns the hearts of several Athenians to Christ. And one of those is Dionysius. It's written in the book of Acts. I don't have the exact passage number written down here, but it's there. You can look it up. And there's a book attributed to him called The Celestial Hierarchies. However, there is some scholarship now that people think that this book was not actually written by Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, but that it was written by someone who we call Pseudo Dionysius. Pseudo because he wrote under the pseudonym Dionysius the Areopagite, but we think he was a different person. So this book that we have that still exists, and it's on Google Books. You could look it up and read it if you want. Talks about the orders of the angels, and it's kind of a heavy book. I've tried to start reading it several times, and it's kind of theological. It's kind of difficult for a person like me to understand, but if you have a mind for reading theology, you could probably devour it if you wanted to. Look it up. So he talks about the 9 ranks of angels, and they are the Seraphim, the 6-winged Seraphim, the many-eyed Cherubim, the thrones, dominions, authorities, powers, principalities, archangels, and angels. And we actually know of the names of 7 of these archangels. I don't have them all written down, but 2 of those we know are the Archangel Michael and the Archangel Gabriel. And we call them archangels, but they're not actually one of the lower. Archangels are actually the second lowest rank of angel, but the Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and the others, I think Raphael, et cetera, they're not actually archangels. We call them archangels, but they are actually higher. They stand in the presence of God. So they are of the highest orders of angels. Now, there are also among these bodiless powers, the demons, and the chief of the demons, Satan himself, Lucifer. And Lucifer, who was originally created as a good angel. And he, he actually fell into, he was the first person, he fell from God. He fell like lightning from, Jesus says he saw him fall like lightning from heaven. And what was his sin? He became proud. Because he was the leader of the angels. He was the leader of the choir of the angels, and he was the most beautiful. He had the most beautiful voice, and he was glorifying God. And then all of a sudden, he became proud because of how beautiful he was. And so, becoming proud, he wanted to supplant God, is what he wanted to do. And this offended God, and God cast him out. And he took with him many of the angels who were now in rebellion from God. And we don't know how many he took, but it is speculated that Satan took from between 1/3 and 1/2 of the angels with him. And they became demons. And demons, evil by nature, now fight against God. They serve Satan. And it's a, just as the other angels are in a hierarchy, these are in sort of an inverted hierarchy. And so there are also going to be orders of the demons. Some are going to be more powerful than others, for example. And we don't know too much about the demons, but we do know that there is a chief demon associated with each of the passions. So there's a demon for the passion of greed, for the passion of anger, for the passion of lust, and so forth. Christians are given a guardian angel when they are baptized. And each nation also has their own angel. Yes, even the United States has an angel looking after it. Now, so last time on one of my previous streams, I had someone leave a comment and they said, well, you should go over your library of books and show us your books. I said, well, that's a good idea. I don't think I want to go through all of them because I think that might be kind of a boring stream. But I'm going to go over this book here today because it's pertinent to my stream. So this is the Prologue of Orid. And this is written by Saint Nikolai Velimirovich. And this has, for every day of the year, this book has some spiritual nourishment for people, and many people like to read this every day. I mean, if you want to get all of your spiritual reading in one place, this is the place to go. It has short lives of saints in there. It has some poetry, some spiritual poetry, a short homily, and so forth. So I actually used this book for my preparation for today's stream, and I looked up, and here was the Holy Archangel Michael. And here was something interesting that I found. I was reading about the Holy Archangel Michael, and he mentions 2 of the places in Scripture where the Archangel is spoken of. And the 2 that he mentions are Joshua and Jude. In Jude, we know that he's writing, and he says that the angel Michael disputed with the demon about the body of Moses, and this is an extra biblical knowledge. This is from some other. Was either written down. We don't know where he got that from, but it was either written down in some other book that's not in the Old Testament scriptures, or it was passed down in an oral tradition. We don't know exactly. Now, the other passage was Joshua 5, and I thought this was really interesting, and I want to bring it up. So in Joshua 5, the Israelites had just crossed over the Jordan, and they were going in, and they were about to, Moses died, Joshua took his place as a leader of Israel, and the waters parted, and they passed over, and they entered into the promised land where they were supposed to take possession of it. And right before they go and capture Jericho, this is where we are, and an angel appears to Joshua. So this is interesting to me because I was actually just watching a Jay Dyer video. I don't watch everything he puts out, but when I can, I catch it. And I was watching one of his live streams actually, and he mentions this passage. This was a week or two ago. And he mentioned the passage, and he says, his interpretation of this scriptural passage in Joshua, he said that it wasn't an angel, but it was God himself appearing to Joshua, because Joshua worships the angel. And so I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it, because here St. Nikolai is saying that it was the Archangel Michael appearing to Joshua, and Jay Dyer took a contrary opinion. So I know of a resource online where we can find out, where we can sort of get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to pull it up. This is why I'm using StreamYard today. And I'm going to screen share a tab I got of this. Here we go. This is the Katana Bible. And if you go to katanabible.com, CATENABIBLE.com, this is what you will see. And this is actually, I learned about, I want to give credence to who it is due. I learned about this website from Father John Whitford. He posted it in the Rouge Reform somewhere. I'm not sure where, but this is where you can get commentaries on the scripture. So here you have the New Testament, all the books of the New Testament. You can go to whichever one you want, and it starts at Matthew. You can go to the Old Testament. So I decided to go to the Old Testament, and let's see, where were we looking? Joshua. And I pulled it up. And so here we're going to Joshua 5. Go to chapter 5, and you can see what commentators, I just wanted to show this tool to you, because if you ever have some scriptural passage that you're wondering about, you can go and look it up yourself. You don't necessarily have to ask someone. You can get to the bottom of the question yourself. So looking at Joshua 5:14, you pick the passage, and here are the various commentaries that are there on this passage. And there are probably other similar kinds of software such as this. There are probably even better ones that have more complete, they might have the different, they probably would have, I'm sure they have ones which have, the Greek and the Hebrew and the different translations and what the words mean. But this is a basic tool that you can use. So if you're reading here, this is George Leo Haydock. I'm not sure who this guy is, but he mentions some fathers. So Prince of the Lord of Hosts, Saint Michael, he says, who is called the Prince of the people of Israel. And then he mentions Daniel 10, chapter 10, where an angel appears to Daniel. Some of the fathers explain it of the Son of God origin, but St. Augustine, St. Jerome, and interpreters in general agree that the person who here appeared to Joshua was the Archangel Michael. So I think that's interesting. So Jay Dyer is taking the this sort of the dissenting opinion, the fewer fathers, because he says that that he bows down and worships the angel. As you read here, Joshua fell on his face and did worship. Now, Another commentator, not George Leo, but let's go to John of Damascus a little further down. He says that, where is it? Joshua, here's John of Damascus saying, Joshua the son of Nun and Daniel bowed in veneration before an angel, but they did not adore him. So he's saying, this guy's saying that he's not worshiping, but he's adoring, similar to how we bow before icons. We don't worship icons, we venerate them. We give veneration to Christ, we worship Christ only. We do not worship angels, we do not worship the saints, we don't worship paint and wood. We give them veneration. So I just want, I'm not really going to take make an opinion here, because I am not much of a theologian, and I don't think I am the kind of person to go to if you want an opinion on theological matters. Oh, let's see. Okay, so let me exit out here, remove this, come back to my pretty face. Okay, so I wanted to just show you that little tool that you can go to, katanabible.com. If you ever have questions, your own questions, you want to get to the bottom of things. Now I think what would be maybe helpful would be to know if you maybe, for example, knew Greek, you could go to the original Septuagint version and read, and that might help you even more in understanding what the author really meant, when he was writing this. So that is the Katana Bible. Let me get into this main thrust, the meat, the juicy stuff here. This is what people want to know: is mental illness caused? Is it caused by demons? Is it demonic possession, for example? I'm not talking about depression, although that is caused by a demon, or it can be. Honestly, maybe it might be caused by a demon, and also might be caused by poor physical health. Sometimes you're eating a horrible diet, you're inside all day, you never get any exercise or fresh air, your vitamin D levels are low, et cetera, et cetera. That can be a contributing factor, but we know that there is a demon of despondency that you must struggle against. And in a future episode, I would like to do an entire episode dedicated to the topic of depression. That's not today's topic, though. When people are thinking, do demons cause mental illness? They're usually more thinking about people who have illnesses like mine. I have what's known as schizoaffective disorder. Or, people who either have that or who have schizophrenia. That is what people, that's what people really want to know. That's their question. And I'm going to break it down for you. So we have a lot of, in scripture, there are countless references to demons and to angels. The angels appear numberless times. We have, for example, the Archangel Gabriel appearing to the Theotokos and announcing that she is going to give birth to Christ. The Archangel Gabriel likewise appears to the prophet Daniel. He appears, he's the one Archangel Gabriel is the one that's sent to inform people often of things. We also have Satan appearing in scripture. Satan appears to Jesus in a visible form when he's fasting in the wilderness. And we also have in the account of Job, the first chapter of Job, Satan is talking to God and he's saying, give me your servant Job. So, and then there are also examples of people in the scriptures who are demon possessed. They actually say this. Mary Magdalene, out of whom was cast 7 demons, it is said. Christ cast out the demons out of Mary Magdalene. Christ also sent the apostles forth, and they were casting out demons. We have the example of the demoniacs in the country of the Gergesenes. And these demoniacs exhibit supernatural power. They're able to pluck asunder these chains. They were bound with chains, and they broke with supernatural strength. They were able to break the chains. So they are exhibiting this characteristic. So that is a characteristic of demonic possession. And then we also have the young boy who is exhibiting symptoms of what many people would consider epilepsy. They might call it epilepsy, but he was cast oft into the fire and oft into the waters. So you see that the boy is losing control of himself, and he's being cast. He's being forced to do something that he's not able to control. He's being thrown into the fire and thrown into the water. So these are examples of possession in the scriptures. So do demons possess people? Do demons exist? Yes. Do angels and demons exist? Absolutely. And this seems like a kind of an antiquated idea. If you are to go and to talk to your normal, you go into the, let's say you go down to the university and you're talking to your university professor, and you start telling him the things I was just talking about, he is going to look at you and he's going to say, you are something else. You are ignorant. He's going to think you're an ignorant fool, but you know that it's the truth. This is scriptural. It's absolutely certain that demons and angels exist, and that they act in the world. They absolutely are. But there is a difference between those who are possessed and someone who's suffering from a mental illness. And we have an example of a saint, St. John of San Francisco, Shanghai and San Francisco. He was able to tell, he had the gift of spiritual discernment, and he was able to tell if a person was either mentally ill and they needed to go to the hospital and get medications, or if they needed to have an exorcism performed. Now, exorcist actually was in office in the early church, and it's not so much anymore. Now I'm going to move my head. This is St. Martin right behind me. I have the icon of St. Martin right over my shoulder here. Let me see. That one. And St. Martin, you read in the life of St. Martin, he actually had the duty in his monastery of exorcist. And it says in the life that it was a very burdensome task. So a difficult task. So it's and the church also has prayers written by saints, and I think they might even be in the Book of Needs. I don't know, which is the priest's book for special occasion prayers that they need to. There might be examples of prayers for exorcism when this is needed to be done. And I've heard of this happening in monasteries. I've never heard of an exorcism being performed in a church, like in a parish. But when someone for someone who's possessed, but I have heard of it done in monasteries. Now, the church does do exorcisms when a person is becoming a catechumen. We kind of say prayers. These are special prayers to kind of ward off the effects of evil from a person's heart. And the church does in parishes make prayers over, for example, the blessing of the waters. They cast out all evil spirits lurking in the waters. So we do these kind of prayers that you will see in an Orthodox church if you are going to church for any length of time. But so the church does have prayers for exorcism. So this is something that happens, but it's probably less common than you think. I don't know. It seems to be more prevalent when you're reading the scriptures than what we normally encounter in our day-to-day lives. I've never really come into contact with someone that I thought was possessed or knew to be possessed, but it seems to be fairly common in the scriptures. But what I think is that back in those days, when people found out about these holy people who could cast out the demons, then people went and who knew people who were possessed. And back then they had more of an awareness of this, and they would bring them to the apostles. They would bring these people who are sick, people who are possessed, to Christ to have him heal and cast out the demons. So I imagine, for example, if Christ was walking the streets today, people all of a sudden would come out of the woodwork and say, this guy, I know this guy, you need to cast out the demon. Okay, so what are What are examples of, how would you know? How would you know if your friend who has schizophrenia, whether he's possessed or whether he just has a mental illness that is caused by, I wouldn't say mental illnesses are caused by chemical imbalances. That's actually a fallacy. That's actually a marketing ploy. That was actually the term chemical imbalance was actually invented by pharmaceutical companies to convince people to take their products. There's never been any tests. No one has ever tested for chemical imbalances in a person's brain. There is no test that exists for that. Nobody knows if there's more or less chemicals. It's just something, it's an oversimplification that pharmaceutical companies teach psychiatrists in order to convince people to take psychiatric medication. So be aware of that. But people do have mental illnesses, and it's not necessarily caused by demons. What would be an example of behavior that would give you an indication that someone was possessed, demonically possessed? So we hear of examples of this, and that would be someone, for example, crawling on the ground and barking like a dog. Or a person who you try to get to come to communion and they fight with tenacity because the demon would be burned by the communion. So they are forced to just do things that they don't want to do. Like it says in the story of the young boy, he's cast off into the water and off into the fire. So if someone suddenly gets possessed by the demon and thrown to the ground, maybe that's epilepsy, but it could also be a demon. So my thesis on this matter is that no, mental illnesses are not caused by demons. That is a whole separate category. And in the case that a person is possessed and they actually have an exorcism performed and the demon is cast out, then you will see them sitting and clothed in their right mind, as it says in the scripture, with the demoniac who had the legion thrown out of him. So they would no longer, in that case, they would no longer suffer from any mental illness, any behavior that would seem like mental illness. So if you are thinking this, let's say you yourself have a mental illness, and you're becoming Orthodox, you're learning about spiritual realities, you're learning that demons exist. I also want to make a note, do not talk to your psychiatrist about demons, because he is going to try to medicate that belief out of you. If you start talking to your psychiatrist and you say, there are demons and they are influencing me to sin, he's going to raise your medication. I'm not trying to convince anybody not to take medication. I take it myself and it's lifesaver. So if you have a mental illness, medication can help. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying be careful to whom you mention this. Careful to whom you talk. Don't cast your pearls before swine, lest they turn and rend you. And this is exactly what might happen in the psychiatrist's office. So my recommendation is do not talk to psychiatrists about this, about demons. I also want to make a note. I want to make a comment about lunacy. So also, people who are lunatic is mentioned in the gospel. And what is lunacy? What are people who are lunatic? This is people who, when the moon is full, they start to act. They start to act up. They start to act crazy. And this is not caused by the moon. I'll explain. But I want to say that this phenomenon is confirmed even today. When I was in the state hospital, the employees at the state hospital confirmed that on days when the moon was full, the people with mental illnesses in the hospital would start to act up a little more. It was a noticeable phenomenon. And the church understands this to be, the reason for this is that the demons become active because they want people to believe it's caused by the moon. Now we have to remember, back in the days, before people were enlightened by Christianity, they would worship heavenly bodies. They would attribute mystical, spiritual powers to the sun, to the moon, to the stars. So the demons are trying to deceive people and to convince them that the moon has special powers, and so that they might worship the moon, or for example, or something like that. They're trying to deceive people. That is a clear teaching of the church. But lunacy, yes, this is a phenomenon and it happens. Okay. Well, there must be something I'm missing here, but that is, I think that's my stream. I think that's my talk for today. So I'll just briefly pour over my notes here real quickly, so I'm sure that I don't miss anything. But it looks like I've kind of talked about everything I wanted to talk about. And if there are no questions or comments, I think that is going to be the end of my stream for today. So I am, just to remind everybody, I am live streaming every 5th day. Sega CD says he just downloaded the Katana app. I didn't know there was an app. That's interesting. That's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. So Katana also has an app. So this is if you want to find out about the scriptures and the various interpretations that the fathers have written. Yeah, I think that is, I'm pretty sure that is all that I have prepared, all my remarks prepared for today. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm live streaming every 5th day. So the 5 days from now is going to be Saturday, and I'm hoping to set up an interview for that day. We'll see if it works out with my guest. But thank you all for watching. And Young Penitent is out.